Fleming Yachts has long billed its boats as the ultimate cruising yacht. And if mouths agape on the docks at your favorite Trawlerfest location is any sort of measure, the Taiwan-based shipyard may be onto something. In December of 2020, Fleming officially announced that hull number 1 of its new flagship 85 was in construction. It's not every day that Fleming unveils a new model. Fleming 55, for example, was first introduced in 1986, and while it's undergone hundreds of changes since then, it remains among the world's most popular hulls today for trawler enthusiasts. According to the Fleming team, with the all-new Fleming 85 model comes true ocean crossing range in either of two versions, open flybridge or enclosed flybridge. Passagemaker magazine had the exclusive opportunity to conduct the first interview with the Fleming team's Duncan, Cowie, and 80s Shard to learn more about the new model, the contents of which we're happy to bring to you as you wake up to headlines about the new Fleming 85. We hope you enjoy. You guys are joining us here in the afterglow of an exciting recent announcement of the construction of the first ever Fleming 85, which is also going to be a new flagship for Fleming. And naturally, my first question is, why the 85?
It was something that we decided to do over 3 years ago, actually. And the plan was to just start working on the design for a larger boat, because we've had a lot of people, existing and potential clients, have asked us for a bigger boat. But we didn't want to go away from the owner-operator. We didn't want it to have to be a crude boat. We wanted something in between, but which offered more than the 78. And of course, it had to still look like a Fleming, and it had to adhere to our various design philosophies. So it wasn't designed specifically for a particular buyer, but we did get a lot of feedback from existing 65 and 78 clients.
Are you building this boat completely on spec?
Well, what we did, as I say, we started the design 3 years ago, and then the last 18 months we've been building the tooling, all the molds and the plugs. Now that's now finished, just about. And then about probably 6-7 months ago, we started contacting certain existing Fleming clients and showing them the specs and the layouts. We wanted to offer, because obviously we can't build hundreds of these every year. It's going to be fairly low volume at this size. So we wanted to offer certain existing clients the chance to order the first boats before we announced it publicly. So that was all done, and the first few boats have now been spoken for, and hull 1 is already under construction. And then obviously this week we've had the public launch to let everybody know what we're doing.
Right, so a few of these have already been spoken for. Are any of these U.S. owners?
Yes, obviously I can't give you their details, but I can confirm that the first boat is going to the U.S. to an existing Fleming owner, and it will have the open flybridge design.
What percentage of your output typically goes to the U.S., and how has that changed over time?
Typically it's around 65 to 70% of our annual production goes to the States, both coasts. And when I say the States, I mean North America as well. We have a lot of clients in Canada. So North America is still our largest market, and that percentage is fairly constant actually over the years.
We have had more sales in recent years in Northern Europe and in Australia. And that's so that those are kind of bigger markets for us more recently, and that's largely because of not only boat shows but also organising owners events, like existing Fleming owners events. They will organise like rendezvous each summer for Fleming owners to get together. So there'll be a whole flotilla of Flemings, and might go cruising for a few days and with some entertainment, and it's really great events actually, which we always try to attend, and they're really worthwhile for like-minded Fleming owners to get together and share their cruising stories and experiences and plan the next ones. And it's become a great kind of sales tool as well, although that wasn't the intention. It was just to get together and have some fun, but it's actually proved quite beneficial for us for new sales.
Sure, and I know that camaraderie sort of rings true in the trawler world.
Yeah.
How many owners are we talking at some of these rendezvous?
Varies from area to area. The last one that I attended was in Australia, and I think we had 10 or 11 boats. we also had quite a few owners whose boats they couldn't bring because they were on the other side of the country. And then if you're looking at the States, our biggest dealer at Burr Yacht Sales, the last event they ran, I think it was a couple of years ago now, and we hit 44 or 45 Flemings. So we're talking, more than 200 people. That one was really impressive.
Well, let's talk about hole number one a little bit. First of all, where and how does the owner plan to cruise the boat?
Well, he's got a lot of cruising experience. He's owned several Flemings over the years. He's cruised the East Coast and the West Coast of the States and Pacific Northwest. He's also cruised 2 seasons in Europe on his current Fleming, including Scandinavia. But I believe the 85 will be based on the East Coast of the States. So I imagine he'll be doing the usual migration of sort of Maine, New England summers and winters in the Florida and the Caribbean.
And what size is his current Fleming?
He has a 78 at the moment.
Understand the experience of the owner. 85 feet it's a lot of boat for single-handed cruising. I wonder, does the owner plan on hiring a captain and crew?
No, he likes to run the boat himself. And this was the thing, really. If you go a lot bigger than the 85, then you really jump into a world where you have to have a crew. Whereas at this level, we have ample crew accommodation, two separate crew cabins and a crew mess with a galley. So you could have 2 or 3 full-time crew if you wanted. But for instance, the buyer of hole 1, he uses the smaller crew cabin on his 78 for his grandkids and prefers to run the boat by himself. So we've had that in mind all along. It's one of the things that put us off going any larger, really. There's several reasons why we have remained under the 24-metre length. Some of it's down to regulations and compliance, but also because it's still manageable. And to make it easy, we've added things like the twin-disc EJS EPS system with position hold. So we have 6 joystick controls dotted around the boat in various sort of strategic locations, and each one has a control panel next to it, which allows you to put the boat into position hold. So you can be operating the boat from the aft flybridge and back the boat into a slip, one person, press position hold, and then walk safely down the stairs to the cockpit station and take over there. So it makes it very easy to handle with 2 people, no problem.
And so coming from a 78, what are the coolest things you've done with this new design, which makes it different from your previous models?
That's a good question, because length overall it's not a huge amount longer than the 78, and maximum beam is actually, I think we're 1 inch less than the 78. But the big difference is that beam runs further aft. We carry the beam a lot further aft, and we've added quite a lot more freeboard. So the interior volume is significantly larger. It allows for the crew accommodation aft. So we have a much larger raised California deck. And then accommodation-wise, we've probably got less length in the engine room, which gives us more length forward for accommodation. So we have options for 3 cabins, all en suite, or 4 cabins, which was something that we couldn't do on the 78. So you now have a 4-cabin boat with 2 crew cabins. And then the biggest change for us is to offer a fully enclosed flybridge, which is something that we've been asked to do many, many times. It's difficult to get a fully enclosed flybridge which looks good on this style of boat. But when you take your time and get it right, it then opens up a lot more possibilities for what you then do in what was the pilot house. So obviously you could then have a raised galley with a dinette, and where the galley normally would be on the lower deck, we can have a more formal dining area. So it gives people a lot more choice.
That's really interesting. And as you're talking, our viewers are going to be seeing some slides and photos of the enclosed flybridge version. What I can see from these photos and even the vessel walkthrough is you kept those classic Fleming lines, which I think a lot of our audience and your clients are going to appreciate. Amazing how you're able to do that. Very often, as you said, when you add the enclosed flybridge, it tends to affect the line somehow. So I'm sure that was a real challenge. You want to expand on that a little bit?
It was a real challenge, and it did take a lot of versions and a lot of back and forth and a lot of tweaking, because really the lines of the flybridge, they just don't let themselves, kind of suit the enclosed, what you need for the enclosed flybridge. So it did take a lot of tweaking, but we're pretty happy with what we've ended up with. It will, I think, allow for the best of both worlds. It's interesting that of the first few that have been spoken for, we have 2 open and 1 enclosed. So it's already kind of proved its worth.
85 feet is considered to be a little on the large side by our reader standards. Your typical Passagemaker reader fantasizes about doing things like the Great Loop, which transits some pretty skinny water and tight passages. We have some ocean crossers in the mix, but still, many consider Fleming to be the holy grail when it comes to trawler cruising, starting with the extremely popular 55 that we see on the docks at trawler fests here and there, and just the mouths agape on the docks tell the real story. Why do you think that is?
I think for a lot of people, it's the look of the Fleming. At least initially, it's the look which draws people to look at the Fleming and find out what it is. We ask customers, how did you hear about us? Why did you buy a Fleming? And it's 9 times out of 10, it's the look just appealed, and then they ask more questions. Once you get on board, there's a bit of a light bulb moment, I think, for a lot of people when they see how practical the design is, that you're able to board every Fleming from a dock on the side deck. And, a lot of our customers are of an age group where ease of access is really important. Wide side decks, it's safe and easy to move around. It's safe for children and dogs as well, which is an important consideration. And then obviously the boats are efficient. We're not wasting fuel. We can cruise very efficiently on every model of Fleming, built to certain standards. I think that gives people reassurance. We're ABYC certified, and all the boats are built to CE Category A ocean standard as well. And then it's all backed up by the dealer network. So you have excellent customer service and support. You have somebody you can call who can answer your questions, provide service, spare parts, help you when things go wrong. So it's a combination, but it's the look that starts it all.
I would also add that building the same model, the same style of boat, whether it's 55, 58, 65, 78, or just the 55, if you can make the same model for many years, you're able to make many improvements, just small improvements, which in themselves might be small, but when all added up together and combined, they can make a big difference to the comfort and the practicality of life on board. And all the Fleming models have evolved, so we can tweak the design to make it just slightly better and slightly better and slightly better until there's all these little details which add up to a much more pleasant boating experience for the owner.
Yeah, agreed. I think a lot of that probably comes down to DNA. A Fleming is a Fleming, and with this new 85-footer, how has Tony Fleming's original vision for the brand informed this new design?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like your expression, Fleming DNA. I think it's really a combination of many things which we believe are essential on a serious cruising boat. You have to start, obviously, the hull design. We always stick to a semi-displacement hull shape, so we have the best of both worlds. We can cruise very long range economically, but we can also cruise fast if need or want is there. We always have 2 engines. We always have that redundancy. We have a low centre of gravity and excellent stability. So sea handling the bad conditions, comfort at sea. Ease of access I touched on earlier with boarding and being able to move around the boat at sea, having sensible staircases, lots of handholds. Then there's redundancy, a lot of backup systems. We double up on all the critical systems. So if something does go wrong, which of course it does at some point, it's very easy to switch to the backup. And A, you're safe, and B, you don't ruin your holiday. Fuel efficiency, and then the boats are all very quiet and smooth. There's no vibration. I mean, the list goes on, but those are the same things that Tony's design brief for the very first Fleming, and it's just as important to us today. Nothing's changed there.
I would also add that, whilst Tony was a great engineer and instilled in us all the ideas of, how everything has to work perfectly, he was also a bit of an artist. So part of the Fleming DNA is trying to get that blend and balance of art and engineering, because you can have something that works great, but it's got to look right too.
In your first builder's statement, you mentioned true ocean crossing range. What does that mean exactly, and how are you achieving that?
We've had many Flemings have safely crossed oceans before, of course. We've had 3 or 4 55s have crossed the Atlantic, and we have a lot of customers who do very long non-stop passages on a regular basis. But if you take, say, a 55 crossing the Atlantic, you would carry extra fuel in bladder tanks on the side decks, fuel, reserve fuel. Whether or not you need it is going to be down to sea state and speed, really, but you would need to carry some reserves. As you get to the larger boats, that's not as necessary. And on the 85, we only have 12,000 litres of fuel on this new model, which is only a little bit more than the 78. But the hull is a much more efficient design. So obviously the figures, the performance data that we have now is all based on the computational fluid dynamics that we used for the whole design. So we would publish predicted performance now. That's no problem. We're confident in what we have. But obviously, until we get the first boat in the water and actually run it, then we'll publish real-world figures. But we're looking at some very significant savings, particularly at the long-distance cruising speed range. So crossing any ocean really is a possibility with the boat.
A new model in the trawler world is always exciting. A new model in the Fleming trawler world is very, very big news. Is there a tentative launch date set?
The plan at the moment is to start sea trials in the spring of 2022, and then hopefully we'll have the boat delivered in time for that summer season. We're on schedule for that now, and then hopefully Hull 2 will be able to follow probably around 5 to 6 months later. It's very exciting for us. I mean, our last new model was the 58, and Hull 1 was launched in 2013. So yeah, new Flemings don't come around that often. So it is big news for us. It's exciting, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, thanks so much, guys. I know we've had to work with some very different time zones, but I'm really glad we had the chance to sit down and chat about the new model. And congratulations, and we can't wait to see it.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you,
Thanks
Andrew.
for your time.